Alright guys, thank you for clicking on the video today. In this video, we are going to be continuing the Subaru Hydraulic Handbrake video. What we're going to do today is we're going to do some final touches on the center console for the Hydro to kind of conceal the master cylinder. Once we have that done, we're going to start attacking the plumbing, making brake lines, connecting them, bleeding everything. If you're interested in that, stay tuned. So what I'm going to start working on now is getting the rest of the center console to fit in here. And since the seat is right here, I thought about just drilling a hole for this to slide through. But that would make it kind of a pain to install this, for one. And for two, the seat kind of covers this area right here. So I think where it intersects with the center console, I'm just going to cut a slit down the center console so that this goes through the hole, and you won't even really see the slit from that side because the seat's in the way. So I'm going to start just kind of mocking this up and marking where I need to start cutting, and then just slowly trimming away at it until this fits down there. But I'm going to have to trim out quite a bit of stuff because all this is kind of going to be contacting a lot of things. All right, so I'm going to line this up the best I can. There's two little posts here that line up pretty well as it sits, so I'm just going to mark whereabouts I think this needs to be trimmed. I don't think we're going to need quite the opening. Up. So there's a screw back here behind this cover, so you just have to stick like a screwdriver underneath here and pry that up, and then you could access the screw back here, and then this should come out. Boom, just like that. Could be better, but it's not too bad. I'm gonna clean it up a little bit just so it looks presentable. It still seems like it's rubbing slightly, but not too bad. So we'll just let it self-clearance itself, but it's working good. It's not moving the center console, as you can see. So yeah, that's looking pretty good. Okay, so cup holder is pretty much fitted. Now, obviously, I could have done a better job at keeping this, you know, snug up against here. I could have left some section in there, but this section, the only reason I'm putting this in here is because I still want to have that cover. The cover's not going to work with this in place because it's only going to slide back like an inch, and then it's going to hit the master cylinder. So this is purely here just so that I can have the cover on top of it. So it doesn't really matter what it looks like underneath here. That's fitted up. This it's not rubbing on anything. I'm gonna clearance it right here just a smidge, just to give it a little extra room, but that's good for there. So next step is going to be to get this cubby fitted, and this one I'm going to try to get a little closer to what I actually want it to look like. Alright, so I spared you the boredom of watching me cut and measure and recut to get this to fit in there. So I was able to cut this out to get the master cylinder to fit, and I was able to retain the hole for the 12 volt power supply, because that is useful sometimes when I'm tuning, to just plug in a power converter and then I can plug my laptop in to charge it. So I wanted to keep that if possible. And then you can see right here, I drilled a hole through the plastic and a hole through this metal base plate down here. And I tapped it for a bolt to go through because I couldn't use the factory mounting system. So I'm just going to throw a bolt in here, and that's what's going to hold this whole center console set steady in the back right there. And then this is also cut so that it goes on there like that. So what I'm going to do now is just do a test assemble into there, into the center console. And then once I'm sure that everything fits, I'm going to remove this rod, sand it, paint it, and then I'm also going to remove this assembly. This paint is all jacked up and old on here. If you've seen some of my other videos, a lot of this interior is like old and nasty, especially these things. So you kind of just remove the old paint or whatever rubberized coating it is. And then I have a paint that I use that matches all these colors perfectly. So that's what I used for this piece right here. So all the black matches. So I'm gonna paint this that color as well, just to kind of renew the finish, because it is all old and chipped and inconsistent and stuff. So yeah, we're gonna put this together and see if it fits. So overall, it looks like it fits. The back end is a little higher up than normal, but I don't think that is going to be that noticeable. That only opens up that far, but that was expected of. I think I need to trim this piece a little bit more for that little dealio, because it is rubbing right here, so I probably need to cut off a little bit more of that. And then the hole is also a little far off, so I'll probably elongate that hole a bit, and then we should be ready to rock, I think. So the car is down right now for clutch issues, so what better time to cut the brake lines and finish the Hydra than right now. So let me show you what I got going. So no transmission in the car right now, but got the Hydro back installed. I mean, everything on this thing works, except that it's not plumbed in. So the cutout for the center diff works, anti-lag button works. We just need to get these routed down to the brake lines, which are down here. So I pulled the passenger seat out so I can route the lines underneath the carpet and lifted the carpet up. And you can see here, these two lines are the rear brake lines. So this is what we're going to be tapping into. When I pull the handbrake, you can see the master cylinder, it moves back a little bit. So we're going to need a little bit of wiggle room there. And that's why I did decide to go with soft lines, not hard lines. I think I'm going to have the lines come under the carpet right here. I might have to remove some of this foam, but it might squish out of the way. I'm not sure yet. Have the lines come down. And then this will be between the seat frame rails. Come down under here in this void, and then I want like a kind of a wide section to tap into. So I think because it's flat right here to right here, so I think in here would be a good area to tap the lines into, and then they can just come down and then up to here. So this is what I got. I was gonna buy pre-built lines, but I decided to make my own just because it was a little cheaper that way, and I'm more comfortable with that. So these are PTFE fittings. So it goes, so these are -3 PTFE fittings. So we have the -3 end there, and then this goes onto the PTFE hose. These are a little different than the AN fittings, but very similar idea. So I'm gonna show you how to put these together. So I'm just gonna cut a fresh end. These are hose cutters. You can cut these with angle grinders, but I don't like to do that because it makes a mess and you get debris in the hose. So I like to just use these hose cutters. I got these at Harbor Freight. They're cheap. So I'm just gonna cut this right in the middle of the tape. Okay, so we got the nut on. For the PTFE fittings, they have this little olive and has a little shelf on the inside. So we need to slide this on the little Teflon hose in there, but it needs to go underneath the braid. The hose cuts them good, but they get a little squished. So I'm just gonna use some pliers to round that out, and then we'll try to, without cutting my finger, get the braid to lift up a little bit. And now we got to get the hose. So we got the olive in there. It's not seated all the way yet, but the braid is on the outside of it. So I'm just gonna push push it down. I'll try to work it in there. Okay. So, I don't know if you can see in here. The tube is seated all the way. Now we can grab this end and you put the barb end in there, just like that. Now it's pressed into the hose, into the olive, and then we grab the nut that we put on at the beginning and we slide it on over and thread it on. So these aren't aluminum, so I'm just going to use a regular 11 mil wrench to tighten this up. Alright, so that's bottomed out. Here's what we got. Nice PTFE fitting that hopefully won't leak. I'm in the back seat here. All I did was remove this piece of foam. So I kind of just cut where I wanted it to come off. This foam was right in here. So this kind of gives me a area where I can route the hoses down and it won't interfere. So I got one hose screwed into the master cylinder and it comes down here. And this doesn't seem to restrict the movement, so that's good. There's these flaps here. These didn't go to anything, but there's studs right down here. So I think I'm going to use these to connect to a holder because the hose route's right next to it. So I'm going to 3D print like a holder for these hoses, but they're going to come down here and then it's going to come up into this brake hose right here. So I just need to cut this line here and put a 90-degree fitting on it. So I'm going to mark that and cut it. Here's our brake line. I'm going to measure how long this is, and I'm probably just going to make the other hoses based on this length so I don't have to keep test fitting them, but I think they should all be the same size. Alright, so I've got my brake hose with the 90 and the straight end on it. Went together real nicely, so I'm going to test fit this again real quick. So I got all the lines assembled and I wanted to pressure test them since it's the brake system. I want to make sure they're pressure tested correctly and everything is sealed up good. So I got this pressure testing kit. So on one end it just has a plug, and then on this other end it has a plug that's an AN fitting with a like tire valve on this end. And you could use a bicycle pump, a compressor, whatever you want to pressurize it. I'm using this is a mountain bike shock pump because it goes up to 300 psi. So I just pumped it up to 300 psi, make sure it's holding pressure. With a compressor, you're probably going to be able to go to like 150, 160 maybe, which it is. There's no leaks coming out of either end or anywhere in the hose. And then I can safely just bleed off the pressure and then take it off. All right, so all the lines are made and pressure tested, so they're ready to be installed in the car. I also made these, which are Inline like separators to keep them, neat and organized while they're in the spot they need to be. I 3D printed these, designed them and 3D printed them. These might go on the website at some point. I'm thinking of starting a website because I've been making a lot of 3D printed stuff. I design everything myself and print it. So I was thinking of maybe opening a store so you guys could help support the channel, buy some parts you need if you want them. Yeah, so if you're interested in that, keep your eye out. There's going to be lots of other stuff there as well. Some universal stuff, some that's more specific for the legacy platform. But in order to mount these, because it's not a bolt that's sticking out, it's like a screw thread, so I don't know the actual thread pitch. So I got some washers and these just nylon nuts. They're 1024, so they are the right diameter. The thread's not this right one, but they're nylon, so when I thread them on there, they'll cut new threads into them. I already tested it on one of them, so it worked. It was snug, so that's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna get these installed on the master cylinder side, install them with these separators, and then just kind of pull the lever and make sure it's not binding up or anything before I go ahead and cut the lines, because that's the part I'm nervous for. So let's get these installed and hopefully everything fits good. All right, so all the lines are plumbed into here. This is hard to film, so I didn't film this part, but both of the line holders are in place, and I labeled them all 1 in, 1 out, 2 in, 2 out, and they're all facing the direction that they need to be versus like in or out or whatever. And they're a little long over here, but once they're screwed in, all the excess I'm just going to pull up through here, so these will have a little bit more slack. But so far this moves pretty freely. You can see this is the section from here to here of the brake lines that I have to work with. For one, we're going to do this section, and for the other, we're going to do this section just to keep them out of the way. The fittings that need to go there are pretty large, and I'm a little concerned they won't fit. So yeah, these are big fittings. It's going to take some finessing, but we're going to figure it out. All right, I am stressing big time about this. Point of no return here. Cutting our first brake line. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? I mess it up and I gotta buy new brake lines. No big deal. Alright, so I had to plug that up to keep it from leaking out too much, but this is a flaring tool. I got it set in here, got the first end flare in, so now I just need to unscrew this, put it in the other direction, and then finish the flare, so this flare nut will work. I had to remove this outer casing so that the nut would actually slide on there, and then I can put one of these guys on there and then thread that onto the hose, and then it'll stop leaking. I mean, it'll go into here, but it will not be leaking into the car anymore. All right, the flare looks good. Grab the nut. Tighten that bad boy down. Okay, 1 in. All right, 1 line done. Fucking hell. That was way more stressful than I thought it would be. There's the first one done. We need to shorten this line right here and cut it back to where it needs to be cut. Then we can do the same thing with this other end, and then do the other side. But I'm going to finish this up off camera, so you've seen this side. I'm gonna do this to the rest of them, and then we'll be back when that's done. Got the lines done. It by far is not pretty, but this should work. So yeah, we still got some buttoning up to do, but the next step I'm going to take care of is I'm going to get the system bled, make sure it works, doesn't leak, and then we can tidy that up, put the seat back in, and go take it for a test. So I got the system bled for the most part. It was not what I initially had thought, so I thought I could just hook the power bleeder up to it and bleed it like normal, but it actually needs different procedures. So what I had to do was I had to get a helper, and so I was at the caliper and I opened the valve, and then the helper pushed the brake pedal all the way down to the ground and then pulled the handbrake back as far as they could. I closed the valve, they let off the handbrake slowly and then let off the foot brake slowly. It's bled like 95%. The pedal feel is a little not great right now, so I'm gonna keep messing with it, but I think because the hydro feels solid now, so I think there's no air like this way, but there might be some air in front of the master cylinder, so I'm gonna try to hook up the power bleeder again and just bleed it like normal with the power bleeder and see if that works. But on the test drive, encountered a couple issues. One being this carbon tube snapped right here, and I think it's because there's not very much, you know, height there for the tube to slide onto. So I added these clamps to try to help that. The clamps did help a little bit, but I think I'm gonna have to like weld an extension onto here just so that the carbon's more solid, because that's one thing I don't want to get rid of is the carbon tube, because I like it. Another issue that I seen that needs to be addressed is, so this mount here, the rear mount, is bolted onto a factory kind of just mount for this, the center console. So it's not that rigid. So when I pull the handbrake, you can see it flexes. So I'm gonna need to reinforce that in some way. And I think how I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna just weld a piece of flat bar that goes probably from here down to here. And then I'll probably drill in front of this spot weld here, drill a hole, put a riv nut, put a bolt, and basically have a third mounting for this plate. And that should fight the force that's trying to push this back and strengthen this whole thing. So I'm gonna do that. And then another issue, if you look at this bar, you might be able to see it's slightly bent because I gave it a good pull during testing and it bent. So you can see how that's bending. This is it's a hardened aluminum rod, but evidently not strong enough. So I'm going to replace this with a chromoly steel rod, a little bit heavier, but it should actually be able to hold up the force without bending. So I got some things to do. So I'm gonna do those. Probably I'm gonna do that stuff minus this, and then I'll show you what we got going on then. All right, guys. So I made the new rod. This is the new rod. This is the old one, the old bent one. So this one was made out of aluminum. This one is now chromoly, and I tapped the ends the same way this other one was. This time, in order to tap it, I had to like file some flat spots on the rod to like clamp it in the vise so it wouldn't spin. This one, and I think was probably part of its downfall, the way I tapped this one, and you can kind of see right here, maybe if the light's not too intense, there's like a dent right there. I pressed it in my hydraulic press in order to hold it, and it worked. I was able to tap the holes, but I think it slightly bent it. So when I went and pulled this, like that slight bend made a weak point and it like fully bent there. So I think that was the downfall. But let's put this new rod in here, test fit it, and see if it works any better. So what I'm expecting to happen is that this rod will be strong enough, but we're gonna see a weak point right here at the bracket. And I strategically made the flat spot right here because I knew that that part would be underneath the center console, so you wouldn't be able to see that part. So I was thinking ahead. Okay, let's see. Yeah, there's no more flex in the rod, no more bend in the rod, but you can see it's pushing this back. So we need to make that anchor. So that's going to be the next step of the process, is to anchor that so it doesn't flex. So I got to design that now. So I forgot to film this, but I made the extra, you know, extension onto the mount. So I just bent a piece of metal, riv nut there, welded it to this old existing bracket, and now it's a lot more solid. It still moves ever so slightly, but once it moves, it gets hard. So we're solid there. The hydro is done, installed. The new chromoly rod is holding up well. I have yet to replace this tube. I just put the clamp there, so it's good for now. This is much more rigid than it was before. Even so, for whatever reason, it doesn't apply like firm enough brake pressure. That could be for a variety of reasons, which I can talk about right now. This, as is right now, this handbrake does not lock up the rear wheels. It does work, however, The main reason I wanted this, as I said before, was so that I can hold the car in staging, press the anti-lag button, let go and launch it. And it works perfect for that. It works for that. If the car's stopped, I can hold this and it holds the car just like this handbrake would. But when I'm driving, put the clutch in, pull it, or it doesn't, it just kind of slows the car down very, very slowly. It doesn't actually lock up the wheels. And there's a few reasons that could be the case. One major thing is this is an all-wheel drive system that is not meant to be locked up like a rear-wheel drive system. So I don't fully understand how the all-wheel drive system works on this transmission in this car. So the, you know, fighting of the front wheels and the rear wheels, that could be causing it to be harder to lock up in that manner. Another possibility is that the stock rear calipers are not strong enough and they don't have enough clamping force to lock up the rear wheels with this handbrake. Another possibility could be that the master cylinder is not doesn't produce enough pressure, and I'm pretty sure the system's bled correctly, so I don't think that's an issue. But those are just a couple things I could think of. But if I were to do this again, I would do dual calipers in the rear. I have dedicated hydro lines and calipers, just to keep it separate from your original brake system. But yeah, for the purposes that I need it, this handbrake is gonna work just fine. And this isn't a drift car, so I don't really need to be locking up the rear wheels. If you have a rally car, then there's a purpose for it. This car's not made to be driving in like dirt and gravel and stuff like that, so I really don't have a need for a handbrake for slides and stuff. So just using this for like launching and staging and anti-lag, it'll be perfect. So I hope some of you found that video useful. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, please leave a like down below. And if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. If you know of somebody who might also like this video, please share it with them. And if you aren't subscribed, please consider subscribing. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.